glad to be with you. Now, we are going to go fast and furious tonight because we have such a vast amount of information that we want to share with you. But let me just tell you, we don't like to just bring the problems up to you because most of you know what's going on in our nation. And we will get to some of that, but we want to bring some practical solutions tonight. So let's just start off with the basics. What is bullying? Because bullying isn't just being mean to someone. Bullying really is any repetitive, aggressive behavior intended on harming another person. And there are several types of bullying that go on. Verbal, physical, social, psychological, and a big one nowadays is cyberbullying. Now, we all know that children sometimes argue with their friends and have a little bit of drama, and sometimes they do and say things that they don't mean and they regret later. But the difference between childish drama and bullying is that bullying really is a repetitive thing, and it's with purposeful intent, and it's about gaining power over another person. So just keep that in mind, and I'm gonna go on and talk to you for just a few minutes about some statistics because I think it's really eye-opening about what's going on not only in our nation, but we're seeing the same statistics in the UK as far as percentage-wise. And so this is really a pandemic. It's what's going on all over the world. And here are the conservative statistics. 58% of students admit to being bullied, but 90% never tell an adult. And of that 10% that tell an adult, 75% of the time, nothing is done about it. Over 5.5 million kids drop out or transfer schools every year, and the number is increasing. And over 160,000 kids skip school, listen to this, every day because they're too scared of going to school because of the bullies. And Coach, if you want to continue on.
Well, I do want to continue on. I want to share with you a little bit about the spread of cyberbullying and what that looks like. So when we do assemblies or we do any type of teaching ministries or what have you, we always talk about two things from cyberbullying, from life, from your cell phone, from whatever. Two things, life and death. That's it. That's the only two things that come from it. You know, and we also talk about how it's the fruit of the spirits and stuff like that. So we're very, very...
Let me jump in and just say, with cyberbullying, we want to give you that statistic because it's overwhelming. There's 1.6 million kids every year that are victims of cyberbullying. And, you know, David, it's not like when we were kids and like when you guys were kids, when you could get bullied at school and then you come home and there's that kind of bit of relief until the next day. No.
Come on.
It follows you home now through cyberbullying, through bullying through text, bullying on social media. And let me tell you just real quick what it's led to. It's led to suicide being the second leading cause of death in kids aged 10 to 19.
10 to 19.
And that's just unbelievable to me. And an astounding, listen to this, because the enemy is really working on our kids. 4.3 million kids a year attempt to end their lives. And last year, that means of the 35,000 suicides reported, 96 kids a day took their own life. And you know, just last week, we were talking with a family whose 9-year-old child tried to take their own life because they were being bullied so badly at school. Can you imagine? And that's, let me connect this back, if you don't mind.
Right, you go, you got this.
These are not just statistics.
Come on.
These are the kids in your church. These are the kids in your community, in your schools. These are the kids in your home. If it can happen to my kid, if it can happen to David's kids, and I hope he shares that story in a little while, it can happen to anyone's kid. No one is exempt. So if you want to...
I call it no one is immune. So I bring a child up with me, and I like to give him a nice little side hug, and I say, listen, so we both go outside in this pouring rain. Who gets wet? They always, without me. I do too.
Right.
We as adults
Right.
and we as children, and no one's immune. We
No.
all somehow get attacked because of our looks or the way we talk or just the way we move. But listen, uniqueness is such a great quality. You are unique. You are wonderfully made. I want to share a story with you really quick.
Yeah, please.
Boy, I always wonder, am I really making an impact? Is the things that I'm doing impacting the kingdom of God? Listen to this story. Her name was Desiree. She was 16 years old. She had just wrote a letter and kept it on her bed. She put it on the bed the morning before so her mother would see it, and she left for school. Well, that day I was at her school. I got to meet Desiree, and I spoke about our program called Think and Suso. And when I was done with the program, Desiree came up to me and gave me a big hug, and she says, I got to get home. I got to get home. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I left my mom a note. Well, Desiree, what kind of note was that?
Right.
She goes, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. We impacted Desiree. Desiree, when she got home, she was able to share with her mom, and her mom was very upset and startled from it. So her mother wrote me a note, and this is what it said. Dear Coach Verdu, I don't know what you said. I don't know what you did. I don't know how you did it, but you saved my little girl's life. Wow. Just one,
And
right?
there's,
Can we get one?
There's thousands of kids
That's
like that
right.
out there that
and we get
need,
hundreds
that need
of
to
letters.
be saved. And it's
yes.
not just us, it's you as children's pastors that
Right.
can make the difference. So first we want to, Coach, I want you to go through this
Yes.
list. I want children's pastors and I want the parents who are maybe tuning in
Come on.
to this to know what are some of the signs that my kid is being bullied. And if you'll just go through the list real fast.
Well, listen, being aware of the signs at school, every child is different and unique. We talked a
Right.
little bit about that. So the first one is unexplained physical marks, cuts, bruises on their body. Please keep a lookout for that. That's a sign. Unexplained loss or damage of school supplies, clothing, lunch money,
Right.
their favorite toy. It's inevitable. I remember kids bringing little trinkets and toys, and they always say, well, they brought them, someone stole them. It's a hard thing. Changes in appetite.
Right.
This is starting at 8 years old, the change of appetite. My son and daughter used to eat everything, but they've done to change their appetite. A loss of sleep or frequent nightmares. Wow, what they have to go through is so hard. Frequent sick days or frequent visits to the school nurse office because they want to be somewhere that's safe,
Sure.
and that's where they want to be. Being bullied by siblings or younger kids,
Well, oftentimes they bully.
Well, I got 7 brothers. You do the math. I do. It's like I wasn't only bullied, but I was a bully, and I just thought that was the thing to do
Yeah, it
because
trickles
it's
down.
taught. That's
Yeah,
a
it
fact.
trickles down.
That's right. Suddenly withdrawing or anxiety or being isolated by themselves. They just want to be alone. They can't wait to get home so they could use the restroom. Listen, I've always told teachers and our administrators that I think the 2 greatest places that we need to have parents or guidance or something is near the restrooms and on the playground. Those are some 2 very, very big signs that people need to be there because when it's isolated and you're by yourself, that's where it
that's when
usually
it can
happens.
happen.
A sudden drop of grades, afraid to be left alone, so they become clingy. And this was the boy that used to love to go, or a girl that used to love to be by themselves and do the things that they wanted to do. Now all of a sudden they become so tight, and
Right.
they become appears to be nervous, anxiety or unexplained anger or depression after going online. You've got to watch that. If you know that your child is online for the next 30 minutes, and then after they get offline and you could see a true feeling or a loneliness or
in what they are,
transformation of who they are, then you need to go back and you need to find out what that is all about.
Yeah, and we want to encourage all parents, listen, when it comes to cyberbullying, it's out there and it's not going anywhere. And so you need to take a hold of your children's accounts. You're accountable for your child. Children's ministers, I want you just to encourage parents to know your child's passwords, log on any time. This is for their safety. And we're going to go through a little bit about that a little later, and what you can do to combat cyberbullying. But I want to move on because, like I said, we have a lot to cover. So how do you spot and stop bullying, dare I say it, in the church? Because believe it or not, what's going on in the schools is creeping into our children's churches. And a lot of times it's in the form of social bullying, which is purposeful or malicious exclusion. Now, sometimes it starts out kids don't even do it on purpose. You know, you've seen the cliques and the groups in church where it's, you know, kids who've grown up together and they have the same life group and they're always together with their families. But then it becomes the new kids, and every other kid that's not a part of that group starts to get excluded. They start to feel isolated. And then it becomes, well, they're weird. And they're not like us. And they don't dress like us. And believe it or not, that is happening in our churches, even though we hate to say it, but it does. And, you know, as a children's pastor for over 10 years, I saw that in my own church, and I decided I had to become intentionally inclusive. And that meant, you know, during breakout sessions, putting kids together who didn't know each other. And starting to integrate them together so they could get to know the kids, and starting to teach them that, you know, we are unique, and it's those unique things that make us awesome. And here's the thing, and you know it to be true, and I know it to be true. Children will often believe that their experience in church is the same as their experience with God. And if the kids in church bully them, or they feel isolated, or they don't feel accepted, then they will liken that to God, that God is a bully. That God does not accept me, that God doesn't want me, and none of us want that. So it's so important that we make sure that in our children's ministry, we are purposefully inclusive. And you're going to hear that word from me 1,000 times here today. And if we're in your churches, purposeful, intentional teaching and showing children the way is the way to go. And I just want to add one thing. So many people have been calling me and texting me and saying, Amber, what is going on with our kids? There is violence, there is suicides, there is, every week it seems to be another thing. And I keep telling them, you know, it's more than just the physical realm. This is spiritual warfare with our children. And, you know, John 10:10 says that the thief does not come but to steal, kill, and destroy. And I like to add, our children. And the reason for that, I believe, you know, can be found in Acts 2:17 when it says, in the last days he will pour out his spirit upon the nations. And our daughters will prophesy. And our sons will dream dreams. But listen here, don't you think the enemy wants to take as many of our children and our youth off of this earth before that revival can happen? Of course he does. So that's part of what's going on. And so I just want to encourage you.
So true. Not
to just pray over your children constantly, but actively begin to be a part of their spiritual lives, because that is going to make a huge impact in what is happening with their feelings of suicide and when they're being bullied. And we're going to touch on that in just a few minutes.
That's good. I want to touch on that just 1 second. Is that, you know, when your parents are dropping your students off at your school or at your youth ministry or the ministry that you're doing, they expect you to make them better. It's your responsibility to make them better. So with that 1 hour, it's so important to do what you know to do. Because we look at scriptures like John 10:10. Well, no, that's an adult scripture. He's only coming to steal, kill, destroy parents and adult.
Kids.
Everybody. Nobody is immune to what the enemy wants to do. Because there is a boy right now, well, let's call him John, who's maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I know that the future for him is amazing in the kingdom of God. The enemy doesn't want him to take hold of that.
So we're gonna keep moving on. So we want to ask, and a question that Coach gets asked a lot is, how do I be honest with the child on a child's level while protecting their minds and their spirits with everything going on there out in the world with bullying and childhood suicide? Coach, you want to touch on that for a moment?
It's the truth. The truth will set you free. So beating around the bush and sitting around and asking very tough questions. You have to. You have to ask tough questions because at school, it's tough. The school questions are even more filled with words that shouldn't be in there.
Right.
Because, yeah, you know, so we as youth leaders, children's leaders, the leaders of our nation, we need to be able to sit them down. Listen, I'm sitting down with children as young as 8 years old, talking to them about their bodies, their mind, their spirit, and how they can grow. I don't beat around the bush no more. I speak truth, and the truth is this. There's a lot of people out there that are very, very unkind. But you, yeah, say you.
You.
Yes.
You.
Or me. Me. Say me is what you should say, me. What can I do to be kind? What can I do to be that one? So when someone comes up to me and he asks me or he shares with me, I want to get to the root of the problem.
Right.
The root of the problem could be something that stems from home, stems from school, and we get to the core of it, and then we try to destroy that core. There's only one way to destroy the core, and it ain't us.
It's going to the root
That's
of it.
right.
And
That's
what
right.
we teach big in our organization especially is the root of the problem of bullying is character development. And
That's
I want
right.
to go over this really fast because God just really connected this in me a few weeks ago. And when we go into schools, we tend to teach in secular or natural terms personal responsibility.
Yes.
This is character development. Personal responsibility, the value of life, tolerance, integrity, and honesty. And we say these are the core values of being a person of good character.
Yes.
But here's what we teach in spiritual terms. And this is where being very purposeful comes into play, because a lot of times what we like to do is say this blanketed term, well, WWJD. And while that's a wonderful thing, what would Jesus do? Some kids don't really know what would Jesus do in this situation.
He can walk on water.
He can walk on. He could Kool-Aid into wine.
Come on.
But,
yeah. So we got to
but
be,
you know,
yeah.
we have to be purposeful in teaching them development of the fruit of the Spirit, because truly character development is connecting it back to the fruit of the Spirit growing in our lives. And when the fruit of the Spirit is working in your life, that becomes the natural characteristics that come out of your life. And we all know, Galatians 5:22-23, and the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control, and kindness.
I'm a tree.
Y'all know that song from Go
do I look
Fish.
like
You
a
do.
tree?
You know it. You're singing along with
fruit.
me.
Sorry.
Well, this is how.
I apologize.
See how much fun we have? Well, this is how we connect back
Come on.
those natural terms that we say in the school into spiritual terms that we use in our children's ministry department. And here it goes. Personal responsibility becomes self-control.
Yes.
Value of life becomes love, joy, and peace. Tolerance becomes patience and gentleness and kindness. And integrity becomes goodness and faithfulness.
That's right.
So this is, developing the fruit of the Spirit in your children's children that you minister to every week is so incredibly important, because this will become their natural characteristics. And the truth of the matter is, if this becomes their natural characteristics, there's not going to be a problem with bullying, because we're going to have that tolerance, that self-control, that kindness, that goodness, that gentleness, that just naturally is what flows out of us. Even on those days that our flesh wants to take over, and we all have those days.
Yes.
That fruit
Not
of the
me.
Spirit growing and moving in you is what is going to make the difference in these kids' lives.
That's
and
right.
I want you to talk about the think method.
Oh, yeah.
Because actually, you guys have probably seen this awesome graphic all over the web, everywhere. We do all the time, and this was his.
I did it. My gosh. So check this out. Think. Can you say think? Oh, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Think on these things. Boy, this is great. Whatever is true, whatever is holy, whatever is.
Think.
It's a scripture. Think
Before
you speak. And if you do that, but listen, not just before you speak, before you type, before you walk, before you
Post.
move, before you
post.
post, before you share. Come on.
Come on.
So we're thinking before we speak. It's so simple. We just pound that into them. And of course, our suso. So if I say suso, you say stand up.
Stand
out. So we'll try it one time. Ready? Suso. Stand
up.
up. Stand up. That's
See,
right.
this is
That's
what we
great.
teach the
I
kids.
totally heard everybody.
Yeah,
That was super
I heard
loud.
him too, right through the camera.
It was great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
All right.
this is what we teach kids because, you know, Christ has called us to be a light in the darkness.
That's right.
He has called us to stand up for others. He has called us to stand out
That's
for
right.
Him. And real quick, I want to go through, because I get this question all the time, and we want to share some real quick practical ways that as children's pastors and parents and children, you can take action against bullying. But first of all, I want to tell you, what is the difference between tattling and telling, okay? In telling, you're telling to keep yourself or someone else safe. But in tattling, you are tattling to get someone else in trouble or to avoid the blame for yourself. In telling, the problem is important or urgent, and in tattling, the problem does not need to be solved right now. In telling, an adult is needed to solve the problem. This is not a problem that kids can solve. But in tattling, it is not an important problem, an adult view, at least, and an adult doesn't have to step in. This is something that kids, you know, this is kid drama that they can, you know, dispute amongst each other and figure out. So, and in telling, you are telling to help someone. And tattling, you are tattling to control someone else and what they are doing. So we're going to real quick go through, and we're going to do this fast. 10 ways. We're not going to talk that much.
No
This is 10 ways that we're going to help you solve some of the bullying problems, and these are practical action ways. Don't judge a child. Listen, sometimes we think we're helping them by correcting the reasons why we think they're getting bullied, like maybe they don't dress the way we think they should, or maybe they have a quirky personality, and we try to correct those things. Don't do that, because you're going to get bullied. Well, stop doing that. Just listen with compassion. And then you need to.
We need to speak up. You need to speak up. If you need to scream with all your might to tell a bully to stop, then do it. But please do me a favor. Before you scream and speak up, know your surroundings, okay? Because I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to get hurt, really. I just don't want you to do that.
And
so
that could happen sometimes.
Yep.
Know who to speak up to.
Right.
And teach your children who to speak up to. And we're going to get to that in a second. But then take notes. This is so important. Let me help you out here. This is so major. Help kids keep a bully journal. Write down the times and the places that the bullying occurred, and try to write details. Include pictures of the injuries, any damaged properties, cyberbullying message, and so far. And keep it up to date. This is your evidence to your schools. This is your evidence to this bully's parents or caretakers. This is your evidence, if you need it, as to what is chronologically going on in your child's life.
that's awesome.
Make an escape plan.
Make an escape plan.
Yeah.
My daddy always told me, know where you are, know where you're at, so that you can have a way out. Always look for exit signs. Do you understand? So have an escape plan. That means the parents are getting together and they're talking about what's the safe place. Where can we go? What can you do, right?
Right, yeah, and you make an escape plan also by having an adult who they can immediately go to if something's happening if you're not there as a parent. Right. Have no fear. You know, God has not given us the spirit of fear. So tell your kid they don't need to fear what's going to happen if they tell. And keep that proof in that journal. Copy, delete, report, and block in the case of cyberbullying.
Yeah, I mean, that's key. You got to
get a hold of your kids' accounts.
You know, have your kids' accounts. Have them handy. Check them daily. It's very, very important.
Screenshot, get the comments, put it in your bullying journal, block. Most social websites have block features. You can block that, but before you block it, get the evidence.
Right. And here's even something better. If you're the ages between 7 and 14, don't let them on social media.
Yeah, I mean, really safeguard your children. We're going to be really fast, be bold for safety's sake, which means in case of continued physical violence or serious abuse, if they're a threat, please do call the local authorities. They need to know if there's a serious threat to your child's life. Start an anti-bullying organization club. Suso's a great one.
Yes. Stand up, stand out leadership program. We never leave a school or a community or
without a leadership
church
program.
without a leadership program. And the leadership is by the kids, for the kids, through the kids, with a mediator would be a parent. But
Yeah,
don't
with no
talk
one
so
standing
much.
alone,
Yeah.
no one sitting
Come
alone.
on.
We don't want
That's
any
right.
kid isolated.
Let them know
Find a
that
friend.
they can do it. It's awesome.
And make sure, this is so important to me, make sure your child knows it's not their fault.
Yeah.
There's nothing that they can do, there's nothing that they can wear, there's nothing they can say that justifies them being
Oh, boy.
bullied. And some kids will feel guilty if they tell because they're getting the bully in trouble, because they're kind kids. Well, it's okay to tell, it's okay to speak up, because consequences need correct behavior adjustment.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say one last thing. Actually, I want you
Are
to
you
say
ready
this
yet?
because
Or
I love
is-
when you say this.
Is
Forgive
this
the bully.
forgive the bully?
Yeah.
Wow. Forgive the bully. When all is said and done, encourage your child to be a forgiver. That's the bottom line. If he continues to have the bitterness or anger towards somebody, he doesn't get to move towards his purpose because he's blocked here and here because of somebody else's tomfoolery, if you will, and
Right, sure.
actions and words, and so we
Right.
get stuck. We get stuck in the muck, and so we got to be able to let them know to forgive. Isn't that the key
Yeah.
to Christianity? Is to be a forgiving, loving person.
And that's
so,
that's part of the fruit of the Spirit. That
That's right.
it all goes back to developing that in your kids' life so that that natural characteristic of the fruit of the Spirit flows through them. And then our bullying problem will be a thing of the past.
That's right.